Welcome back to another chapter in the Beard Zero saga. Thanks so much for tuning in today. So today, I am back out at Stillhouse Hollow Reservoir, and I'm here on a mission. Today, I'm here to test out a new lure that I've been working on called the Pike Piper. I'll give you a close look at it here shortly, but right now I'm on the walk to my first spot. I'll catch up with you there. Now, the Pike Piper is a lure that I have only tested a handful of times and have yet to catch a fish on it. It's not that it doesn't work, but it was that I was trying to test it at inopportune times during the year. I was trying to test it when it was kind of cold out, nasty out, and it wasn't a good time to test it. However, I did get some good feedback on it about its strength. At first, I was using like a really soft finesse blend type of plastic, and that proved actually to be quite fatal for the Pike Piper. It could only last maybe 25 to 35 casts before it would cast itself apart. It's just the plastic was too soft and some parts of the bait are kind of thin. So I had to go ahead and upgrade to a much firmer blend, which works a lot better. So by testing, I already worked out one of the bugs in it. Now, my mission, now that the fishing has improved, is to get out here and actually catch something with this. Although during testing, I did have a couple times where it did have an encounter with fish. However, these fish were too small to be able to strike this lure, really. They were small bluegills, they were small bass. Now, the bluegills, they would come up and nip at it, but the bass, they would chase it right in, but they were just too small to be able to do anything about it. So they couldn't really hit it. But either way, at that point, I knew that it was still worth continuing the pursuit of this lure. It wasn't out of the race yet. So today I'm out here giving it my best bet. And if you haven't noticed yet, this is actually one and the same day as Zeroed In Day 2 Rise of the Deadfall Shad. So you'll see a little bit of that later, some of the footage that you didn't see that I didn't show you from before. But for now, working along the tree line, as you can see, just casting it out to areas of interest, and I'm working this bait along, just twitches. A twitch pause gives really good action to this lure because it does have kind of built-in action with it. But again, at this point, I really have no idea if this lure is going to work or not, and I have no idea of its future, if I'll actually ever produce this lure. But it's why we do the testing. Can't just throw something out there without ever testing it. Well, I suppose you could, but generally that doesn't yield very good results. So that's not what I'm going to do. Now, for my selection for my rod today, I had chosen to go kind of with a lighter rod. I went with a 6'6" medium action spinning rod. Now, I probably should have selected a different rod, but I wanted to go with light gear for the finesse. I wanted the presence of my line to be very minimal, and I didn't want to have a whole bunch on there. I wanted it to be a very light 8-pound finesse rig. Now, later, that may prove to not work all that well. I seem to lack a bit of sensitivity, as you'll see here in just a moment. So as I'm twitching, the very next twitch, I actually have a fish on already, and I didn't notice him strike it. It seems boats are good luck for me when they go by. But I did not feel that strike. It was really cool. I just caught my first fish off of it, but I did not feel him hit it. Now, I think if maybe I would have been using my bait casting rod, which is a 7-foot medium action bait caster, I would have had much more sensitivity control with it, and it probably would have worked. Oh, that was the guy in the boat saying, "Hey, great catch." Now I was just saying, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm out here working hard." And after this, after I give you a nice look at it, I end up moving to another location. But this is promising. This is very promising. I've already caught a fish and I've only been here maybe about 10 minutes or so. Okay, so now I relocated to another area and I'm not casting super far. I don't want to fish this lure across the whole lake. It's more of a precision finesse bait. I'm fishing around areas of structure that are kind of close into shore because that's where the fish are hanging out. And those trees, the submerged timber that you see there, that's probably about 5 to 8 feet deep there. And that seems to be about the key region that you're looking for around structure this time of year. Now you can see here the wind blew my line into the rock, so I was trying to use my rod tip to get it out. And then all of a sudden a fish starts taking it and my line just starts going tight. Ultimately, I ended up losing this fish because I wasn't able to set the hook very well. And with this, I had had enough information for the day.
I'm going to get a measure on this guy, but I think he's a bit small, so he might be going right back in. Let's have a look-see. I think he's probably only about 13 inches or so he might very well be headed back today. Let me get a quick check on it and see. Okay, so as suspected, he's only 12 and a half, so he's going right back in. He is not a lawful bass to keep. So we're going to stick it right back in where we got him from. Right down here. And off he goes. Right back to his spot. Okay, awesome. Well, that makes 3 fish for the day.
And what lure testing video would be complete without some underwater footage of the lure in action? So as you can see on this drop shot rig, as I have it rigged here, just little twitches, moving it maybe 6 to 10 inches, my rod tip, and it just jumps all over the place. And that's all you need to move it, to be able to stretch it out so it can go through its action.
Okay, so now that I'm back in the shop, now is a good time for me to go ahead and give you a quick demonstration about how I have rigged the Pike Piper and how I initially designed this lure. My thought process behind that was I was going to use this as like a drop shot bait for finesse fishing, but I've since learned that I can fish it several different ways, and my favorite way now is probably maybe the Carolina rig. So these are just some of the patterns that I've created. Now, as you can see, some of the packs have multiple colors in them, and that's the beauty of custom lures, is I can put multiple colors in one pack, or I can make them all the same, but more or less everything's custom. So let me go ahead and clear this out, and we will get rigging a Pike Piper. Now, when you see one of these in the pack, you're probably like, wow, what the heck is that? You know, most people have no idea is what the initial reaction is to this lure, which is kind of fun and kind of, well, that might be a problem and something for me to consider later on. But when you remove the rubber band and stretch it out, it's actually a pretty cool little design. Now, for rigging, you can rig this almost any way that you want to, but the only thing I would say is probably don't use a big old bass hook for it. And the reason that I say that is because of the overall length of the bait and that there is built-in action in the lure itself. It would take up a lot of its overall action, and you'd lose a lot of action using this big old hook like this with it. So what I would recommend is something a lot smaller, like what I was using the other day. So to give you comparison, because I really have no idea what size this is, and I don't want to tell you the wrong size, but this just came in a drop shot little box that I picked up online, and it didn't specify what size it was. It just said that there was gave a quantity of how many was in there, but it didn't tell what size. But just so you can see, so if you're at the store trying to select some for yourself, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, what size. And how I rigged this. Now, how I rigged it the other day on the Carolina rig was a little different, but how I rigged this is I start with the head, just put the hook down into it to about the bottom of the shank, where it starts to curve in the shank there, and then I pop it out the bottom, and then I bring it down and tuck the head of the hook down inside the head of the lure, and then I spin it back around, put it back through. Now this one doesn't exactly have to be weedless per se, but I have used this in the past with weedless hooks, and they work out pretty good. But you don't have to use that type. Now here's an example of one of the weedless hooks that I was talking about. Just has that little weed guard on it. But certainly not necessary. Now this is how I rig it for like drop shot. But how I rigged it the other day, I'll show you, was a little different. Now I went down below the head and hooked it in like its first set of little ribs here. And that's where I'm going to hide the hook, behind or underneath the head instead of in the head. And same thing, I'm just going to spin it back around and place it back through the body. Now this way, it was a little more weedless when I did it this way. And it gives the head a little bit of extra action. But no matter how you fish with this, you could even fish with it with a jig, and it should work well. The only thing that I think it won't work well with is the big bass hook, and just because it will take up too much of its ability to have its action, because it does coil back up on itself. Now, I will say at this point in time, at this stage in the testing that the Pike Piper is in, its future is uncertain. There's no guarantees that this will ever be a lure that I actually produce and ever sell. So, at this point, I would love to hear your comments about how you feel initially, first time seeing the Pike Piper, and how you feel about it. And on an upcoming episode, I will talk about the Pike Piper's bigger cousin, the Pike Stogie. But that will be for an upcoming episode. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.